QuickBooks Online 2026, creating and analyzing and accounts payable graph, creating reports within QuickBooks, exporting them to Excel, using Excel to make the graphs. So get ready and some coffee because we're getting the books on track with QuickBooks Online 2026. Searching for the free QuickBooks Online test drive as done every time. Simply typing into our favorite browser, QuickBooks Online test drive. Looking for that result that has Intuit.com in the URL because Intuit is the owner of QuickBooks. And then we're going to have to somehow get you, AI Aura, past the CAPTCHA.
Whoa, me? A computer? Nah, I'm just Era, the world's least robotic accountant. Click I'm not a robot. Watch me prove it with a dad joke. Why don't accountants play hide and seek? Because good books are always found.
All right, there it is. No computer would be able to bust that one out, for crying out loud. We're in. Let's do this. We're going down to the favorites, right-clicking on the balance sheet, open a link in a new tab, right-click on the profit and loss, open a new tab as done every time. We're going to be tabbing to the right. We're going to close up any pop-ups so we can put the range in frame for 2025 because that's where the data is currently at this time. Closing those pop-ups up. Man, stop telling me stuff. QuickBooks 010125 tab, 123125 tab. We're going to do the same process for the profit and loss and ranging to the changing 010125 tab, 123125 tab. We're remembering we do that every time. We've got the standard financial statement reports, balance sheet income statement reports, all other reports, typically giving more information about one or multiple line items of these reports. We typically call those subsidiary type of reports. Now, some of those types of reports might be useful to make graphs from as you do your typical kind of batching of reports, possibly for a supervisor, possibly for your clients. One of the most common ways to do a pie graph or something would be related to income, making income, scrunching it down to one line of income, breaking out the income possibly by customer or possibly by item or service, thus things that you sell. Anytime we have a list that adds up to a total, that means, hey, I can make a pie chart out of it, or I can make a bar chart if I want to. Either one would work. On the balance sheet, though, before we get to that income one, we did the accounts receivable last time, which you might want to break out the accounts receivables by who owes you the money. Most likely not as common as your go-to chart if you could break out income, but could be something useful. And just to note that we could also do that on the other subsidiary ledger, just to practice, which would be the accounts payable, remembering that the accounts payable is a lot less common for small businesses because it's likely that you pay for everything as they become due, and therefore you don't have the accrual component of accounts payable because you pay things with the bank feed. But as companies get larger, time value of money becoming more important because of the size and quantity of transactions, then you're more likely to have accounts payable, which could be broken out if I drill down on it by the transaction detail by date, but also we need to know it by vendor because we need to know who we owe the money to. And anytime we have a breakout of this number, it should sum up to this number by vendor, then I should be able to make a pie chart by simply exporting that information to Excel, sorting it from highest to lowest, and then picking up the top 10 or something like that. Easy to do. So let's check it out, and just to practice our system on that, remembering you might think, hey, QuickBooks Desktop did that automatically. And so why is QuickBooks Online slacking? And I don't think it's slacking. I think it's recognizing that the reports should be generated within QuickBooks to some degree of complexity, but any further degree of complexity could easily be accomplished with Excel, such as creating graphs. In other words, if QuickBooks started building all these graphs, it would get complicated quickly, and all the graphs could be generated fairly easily these days with Excel, even if you're not an Excel professional. So that's what we're going to kind of practice with these. So we got who owes you. That would be accounts receivable we looked at before. Then we have what you owe. The primary one up top is the accounts payable aging, but we don't need the aging. We just need a straight up summary. So that would be the most subsidiary ledger-like report would be the vendor balance summary. So let's right click on that one, open the link in the new tab. And let's see what we get here. Que paso, what is going on? And I'm going to make it as of a date so we know that it is as of the end of 2025. Notice there's no date range they even give us because it's a point in time type of report, 12/31/25, meaning this is the accounts payable broken out by who owes us the money as of a point in time. Look at that. It's so easy to make that into a pie chart, right? I could even hit the drop down here and look at the percents, and it even gives me the percents. So those percents are going to be in our pie chart if I want to do it in a pie chart format, or I could do it in a bar chart, which would give us this information. I think it's easier to just do the percents myself in Excel so we can calculate them and possibly get a better analysis for how to calculate it. But it's like, okay, like I can make that into a pie chart really easy. So let's say how we're going to do that. Now, what I'd like to do is think, well, what if I'm going to batch these reports together? I'm going to give them to a client or supervisor. Maybe I have already put some of them into QuickBooks, like a balance sheet, a comparative balance sheet, and so on that we did in prior presentations so that I could format them in here and then print them all to one PDF file using a cute PDF printer. So if I do that, then it would be easy for me to also batch in a graph as we did with the accounts receivable graph here. And I could do the same thing with accounts payable graph so that I can get some fancy graphs, put them in one bundled batch of reports with one PDF file using Excel and a cute PDF printer, allowing me to do formatting no one else is doing with QuickBooks because they don't know what they're doing, even though it's easy to do. So let's go back to the vendor. And let's go ahead and just export this bad doggy. This is coming out to 1602.67. Let's just verify that that's the amount on the balance sheet. 1602.67. Boom. Let's go back over here and let's just export this thing here. Export to Excel. Obviously, you need Excel to export to Excel. So that's something that you will need if you don't have Excel and you're like, what is happening? You kind of need Excel if you're going to export it to Excel. So we're going to say, okay, this is going to be the vendor balance summary. And this, I'm going to call this the AP graph data, which will be the vendor balance summary. Let's close that or save that. And then let's go over here and open it. So I called it the AP graph summary. So I don't want it in a standalone Excel worksheet. I want to copy it over to the other worksheet. If you don't have another worksheet, you could work with it as is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to move or copy. I'm going to create a new copy. I want to put it into drop down this other workbook. So the year end workbook. So it's going to copy the same tab as is to the other workbook. Okay, boom, there it is. So now I've got two windows open. I don't need this one open anymore because I've copied that over. It put it on the front. I want to drag it to the back end of this. And then once again, I'm going to have two tabs, imagining the first one being my accounts payable data, which I will then use to form the graph on a second tab, allowing me to then right click on the data tab and hide the tab so that it doesn't show up when I print all of the reports together into one PDF file so I can send it at one time with beautiful graph demonstrations. All right, so I'll do this fairly quick because we saw a similar process with the accounts receivable, and because this isn't an Excel presentation, I just want to show that you could do this pretty quickly even with limited knowledge of Excel because it's just a sum of numbers and the total. Just a few kind of tips on formatting to get this thing to as clean and easy as possible. So I'm going to double click down here. I'm going to call it AP graph data. And notice when I have the graph over here, like it messes with the formatting. So now it's in Arial 8, and up here it's in Arial 14 and so on. But over here, where nothing was added, we get the standard formatting, which is Calibri 12. So to me, I'd like to keep it maybe in Calibri 12, or possibly you can match the formatting over here in these reports. Whatever the standard formatting is, you kind of want to keep that, right? So like you could bring all these reports up to like Calibri 12, Calibri, and then 12 or something to get it all kind of uniform. Whatever your whatever, that's one of the things you kind of want to think about, like what is going to be the uniform type that you want. Let's get rid of the dollar signs. I don't really need the dollar signs, so then I could format this. Maybe I go currency, negative numbers bracketed, no decimals, no dollar signs, something like that, you know. But that's some basic, pretty easy formatting that you can do. But over here, I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'm just going to put the data over here where the standard formatting is, or I can select the whole table if I want to change it. But I'm going to change the formatting over here. Right click, I'll format the sheet. Currency is my default, negative numbers bracketed, no dollar sign. I'm going to say no decimals. Boom. And then I'm just going to keep this as my data and then copy information. So I'm going to make a skinny. And then I'm just going to take the same data here and I'll just copy it down. So I have it formatted the way I would like it. And then I could say this will be equal to this, and I'll copy that down. Okay. And so that sums, so now I have the same data repeated. I could sum that up, and that adds up to 1603. So what I want to do is put it in order now. I like to make a table out of it because I feel more secure that way. So I'm going to select the data that I want to make a table from, insert, make a table. It doesn't have a header, so it's going to add a header. Okay. And this is going to be vendor, and this is going to be, let's just say amount. And then I want to format it. Usually you'd need to format it Z, hit the drop down, Z to A. Now, because it's going to go highest to lowest. Notice I can't do that because I put I said equals that number. I have to hard code these numbers to do that. So let me do it again. I'm gonna delete the data in here. I'm just gonna copy this data and then paste it 1, 2, 3 values only. So now it's just hard coded numbers. And now I should be able to go Z to A. There we have it. So now we've got the highest to the lowest. Now, if there was more than like 10, then I might have to say I'm going to pick the top 10 and put everything else into the other category. But because we only have 5 here, that should be easy to put into a pie chart, no problem. So I could select this data and go into Insert and then the pie chart. So we have the standard pie chart. I don't really like the 3D pie chart because it looks deceptive to me. Or you've got the new donut pie chart, which is the classy, new, clean look, less filling. But let's go ahead and do the standard pie chart because I did the other one last time. So there we have it. I'm going to delete the title because I'll put the title on the other page. You have different formattings up top. I kind of like if you have large enough pie slices to put the percentages within the slices. And then you have your key on the right-hand side. I kind of like that. You have different color options. I won't get into all of the details here, but you could do some basic formatting pretty easily. And then I can, instead of putting it here, I want to add another tab and then double click and call this the AP graph. AP graph. Graph. Okay. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab this graph. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to put it here. Boom. So that I have that here. And then I'll put it up top. And then maybe on the header of the sheet, I'll just call it AP graph or accounts payable graph. I'm going to select the second sheet back to the first sheet to see where the page line is. If I'm in portrait, I can put this as a full header somehow, however I want to do that. Right click. I like to format, alignment, and then horizontal analysis across, and then boom, and then maybe make it larger and boldened. And then I can make this basically fit the whole page. Now, I like to make it landscape maybe, because if it's in a PDF file, I'm not really worried about it being landscape, because it'll still show vertically if someone opens it electronically. We don't have that problem of having to staple the pages together typically, in which case landscape pages cause kind of an issue. So, right, so then I can do boom, and there it is. So I think, so that's as easy as it is. And I can go over here and I could make another one. I could take the same data. Maybe I would rather have insert. Maybe I would rather like to see an insert bar chart, maybe a horizontal bar chart this time, since there's only 5 of them. And I'll make it, this one, the 3D doesn't bother me so much. So I can make it 3D, get rid of the title, and then color code it or something. All right, and then I can copy that and put it over here on the second page, let's say. And then again, I just want to make it big enough so it fits the whole page. So it's like as big as it can be, because it's going to be a whole page chart. Boom. Okay, now if I was to print this out, if I went over here to print it and I went File, Print, then I'm going to print it to a cute PDF printer. I'm not advertising that one, but I think it's a free thing. And then instead of just one page, I want to print the entire workbook. Now, notice here, sometimes when I'm on this sheet, it won't let me do the entire workbook for whatever reason. But if I go back and I go to this page and I click off of like the graph and then go back on over here and say, I want to print, and then PDF printer, the entire workbook, please. Then we have all of it. Now there's a problem though, because the data tab's going to show up. And I don't want it to show up when I make my PDF file. See, there's the data tab for that one. And then so I don't want the data tabs. Okay. So I'm going to go back on over and say, I can just hide those. Right click, hide that. And then this one, right click, hide that. So the last 2 bits are just these graphs. 4 graphs should show up. Let's try it again. And we're going to say print. It should be 4 graphs at the end of this big bad PDF. And so there's the one we did last time, accounts receivable. Last time, here's the accounts payable graph. Boom. And so see how that's kind of impressive? Like if you were to give someone a PDF that has everything in one document instead of 8 different documents, and which has some basic formatting in Excel, possibly just putting the font in something different than the font would be in QuickBooks, your own font, whatever, I'm not an expert on that, but a little bit of font would be nice that you can adjust to make it custom, make it all uniform and whatnot. And then you can add some little graphs, which again, no one else is doing, because everybody else is probably either using the standard management reports that are within QuickBooks, and even that is a step up than most people are doing, which is just to give access to QuickBooks to the client. Again, that's cool. That's fine. The client has access to everything that way, but the client doesn't know how to do anything, right? They know very basic stuff. So just presentation-wise, it would be useful to batch reports up, possibly monthly, quarterly, at least yearly, give them to the client so that they can see what is being generated in a way that they can't simply generate themselves, even if they had access to QuickBooks. And even if they do have access to QuickBooks, they probably don't even know how to format a basic balance sheet and income statement to do like a comparative analysis or any of that kind of stuff. So that, again, lends confidence to hopefully the people you're doing business with that, that they feel comfortable, right? That you're going to be there at least at year end when the crap hits the fan, taxes are needed, and you need to talk to the CPA firm or do whatever needs to be done during that time.